Hello, everybody, and welcome to the ninth episode of the Music Nook podcast. Um, Today, we are going to be covering one of my favorite gangster rap albums of all time, Brentwood by Poloboy Nunu. This album came out back in 2020 now, which is just like crazy to me because I was listening to this album not too long after it came out, or when it was still Poloboy Nunu's most recent album is when I first started listening to it. So crazy that it's been 3 or 4 years since its release, but this is one of my favorite gangsta rap albums of all time, because of its fantastic ability to convey profound emotion, pretty much. Um, all of the 16 tracks on the album are memorable for me. This is one of those albums with like no skips whatsoever. I did find upon re-listening to it that the sequencing is kind of interesting. You have a lot of the slightly more hype songs in the first half, with a lot of the more pain-based songs in the second half, which is an interesting choice. But that's just the sequencing. As far as the actual content of the album goes, like every single song fucking slaps. So I'm interested, Jaden. What did you think about this album? This is your first time hearing it, or you've
Yeah,
yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I thought that despite it coming out in 2020, as far as I can tell, it seems to the sound of it and uh, the style of it seems to have aged very well. It seems like it could have come out like today, basically. Um, I think that uh, yeah, this album doesn't really have any skips for me either. I think that I'm more new to it, so I haven't quite memorized every track on it or anything. But and the fact that the lyrics for this album are not anywhere on the internet had makes us reviewing it a little bit different than what we usually do. But I think that this album definitely hit for me. I think that I'll probably see myself revisiting it more in the future.
My bad, I accidentally closed out the. I'm sorry, I don't know why that made me laugh so
How could you?
much. Oh shit. Okay,
What
let's get
was it showing
everything
on
set back
screen?
up.
What's it showing on screen now on OBS?
No, I don't know. What's with this OBS showing? OBS is just showing me, showing the process of me pulling it back up. Okay, and then I think I need to reshare the screen with you, right?
Yeah,
I don't know why that was so funny. Okay, here we go. We're back.
I agree with you mentioned that you think that this album is underrated or doesn't get or underviewed at least, underplayed at least. Um, and I think that that definitely seems to be true. I could see this being a much more successful album than it is. Poloboy Nunu's vocals and delivery and lyrics are all very well done, I think. Um, and the production on this album in particular, I haven't listened to any of his other albums, but this album was produced very well, I think. There's a lot of memorable beats on it. Um, so, yeah, I think that I'm curious to hear more about what you think of this album and why it's one that resonated with you so much. Because you said that you were like listening to this a lot at one point in your life.
Yeah, it was a period of my life when I lost an apartment and I was living in a hotel while I was searching for a new apartment. Um, and I was still going to school at the time, so I was under a lot of stress. I was very sad, very lonely. Um, and this album like really was the album that got me through that time. And I think it's because of Poloboy Nunu's unique and effective way of communicating profound negative emotion in a way that's entertaining for people who aren't actively feeling negative emotion and deeply validating for people who are. Um, I guess we can start going through the track list here. Shake a Room is definitely one of the it's an intro track. It's not one of the more emotional songs on the album. I do really like the lyric on this track where he says, "Get a drop and I'ma show you how to shake a room. Coming with the business, you would never try to play a goon." It's like really, really menacing and really, really powerful, and it just like almost like creates this visual of him and I guess his goons rushing into a room with guns and shaking, leaving everybody in that room shook with, how they sort of uh, terrorize everybody in order to accomplish their objectives. That's those are a couple of really, really powerful lines. But going off into the second, into the first rather really profound song on the album, Hard Life. I love the refrain on this song. My granny keeps saying it's all right. I love how he's contrasting his own general sort of like gangster image with still needing reassurance from a female figure in his life. I think that's really, really powerful. Um, and I like the melancholic chorus on this album. Because I had a hard life from the trap to the hills, th this album or this album has an appeal to me for a similar reason. Birth of Violence by Chelsea Wolfe has an appeal to me, and that's because of its deeply melancholic nature and how that makes it enjoyable when you yourself are in a depressive or melancholy mood. This is Poloboy Nunu. If you didn't listen to any of his other projects, generally is a pretty hype rapper. Like a lot of his other, like especially his albums before Brentwood, involve a lot of yelling, and his album immediately after Brentwood, Never Leave Naptown. And then his couple most recent albums, don't involve quite as much yelling, but they definitely don't involve anywhere near as much pain-based music. It's a lot of like, really, really true gangster rap. This album is unique in his discography and its heavy reliance on pain-based music. Um, and I really, really appreciate it because, like, experiences, as someone who experiences a lot of pain, um, it often comes in handy to like have this album available to play. A lot of the songs on here are really like emotionally validating, even if I can't relate to a lot of the lyrical content. The third track, Glocks Out, is similar to is not similar to Hard Life as far as its lyrical content goes. Glocks Out is definitely more of a typical gangster rap track with like slightly more upbeat lyrics, but the chorus is still decidedly melancholic in its tone rather than its lyrical content. Glocks out, da 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 na 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 na. Like it's slightly subdued. There's this air of mutedness to it that still makes it feel melancholic, even though the lyrics aren't necessarily conveying that. So even that song, maybe I'll listen to it when I'm in a depressed mood that has like a tinge of acceptance and chillness to it because that's the mood that I would listen to this song in because this song itself is a mixture of sort of this melancholic vibe with these sort of like upbeat gangster rap lyrics. I believe that was probably the single for this album. Um, on YouTube, I think it all syncs up. Um, um, but then on Gang Ties, you kind of go back to this sort of melancholic lyrical content as well as the vibe. We got Drake goes, bitch, we take souls. about them pesos. We come into the case close, step into the case close. Um, it does have some sort of like upbeat gangster rap lyrics in the style of Glocks Out. But the vibe is so like overtly melancholic that I would consider this overall a pain-based song. And it's another song that like regularly gets played when I am in a depressive mood. One of this album in general is just one of my favorite albums to spin when I'm just dealing with that sadness, you know. Um, but then the album kind of like that is very understandable. Um, no, you're good. The album then sort of switches up for the fifth track, 1000 Rounds, with a a pretty intense beat and pretty fierce vocal delivery from Poloboy Nunu, as well as some fierce gangster rap lyrics. Um, Surprisingly, not a lot of plays. I would have imagined this would have also gotten a lot of plays just because of its sheer intensity. Same with the song Rundown, which we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, this is definitely one of the more intense gangster rap songs on the album. And this song is generally going to get played for me like when I'm in a better mood, like maybe when I'm headed down to San Antonio to meet up with my friends for a rave. Like I'll 1000 rounds will be a song that gets played on my car speakers. Then we have Big Chain, which is kind of similar to Glocks Out in that its lyrical content looked at in isolation is a little bit towards the direction of upbeat gangster rap, but its mood is decidedly melancholy. Dun, 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 dun. It's muted. It's not really loud. It's not really in your face. It's something that you can listen to when you're in a melancholy mood, and even despite the lyrical content, it still really does. It still really does hit in those kinds of moments. We the Fours is the least played track on the album on YouTube Music, and or at least the second least played track. And it's one of my lesser played tracks as well. That's not to say it is a bad track by any means. But it's a little bit more reminiscent of Polo Boy's newer style. Um, but he doesn't it's not, you know, obviously it's not quite as evolved as his newer style, so like, I can see why it maybe didn't get quite as much attention. But you have this sort of like delivery that's bouncy, like it's muted, but it's not melancholic because it's bouncy. So this is another track that's going to be played like when I'm in a bit of a better mood. um Geez, we're almost halfway through the track list, only 13 minutes in. It's going to be a shorter episode. It's probably because we don't have the lyrics to look at. Um, um, then we have Been Violent, which is a shorter track, and also a track that's maybe a little bit more reminiscent of his newer sound on his more recent albums. But again, not quite as evolved, so I can see why I didn't get quite as much attention. But it's another sort of like bouncy track that for me is going to get played when I'm in a better mood. And another track that's going to be played when I'm in a better mood is the ninth track, Rundown, which is far and away the most intense song on the album, along with 1000 Rounds. But really, Rundown is more intense than 1000 Rounds. Um, I just love just like the sheer menacing nature of both the beat and Poloboy Nunu's vocal delivery, as well as the lyrical content. Like, you can just hear in this song that this man has had experience actually terrorizing people in real life. Like, it's just conveyed through the sheer energy of the song. This is a person who is actually engaged in real criminal activity, which I'm not saying criminal activity necessarily a good thing, but it's impressive how he's able to make it so apparent. Less so than with the lyrics, than just with the sheer intensity of a song that he was able to make. Like anybody could listen to this song "Rundown" by Poloboy Nunu, and you're gonna be extremely hesitant to say that, Poloboy Nunu is like a kayfabe rapper who raps about things that he saw happened around him or that he's heard happen, but that he hasn't actually experienced or done. Like, you're not gonna come away from a song like Rundown thinking that about Poloboy Nunu for sure. Um, Very, very intense, menacing, dark song. Love it. One of my favorite gangster rap songs of all time. One of my favorite songs on this album. And despite the fact that I like this album for a lot of its more melancholy cuts, and this song isn't melancholy, it's definitely more of a hype cut that's gonna get played when I'm in a better mood. It's still one of my favorite songs on the album, and probably even my favorite non-pain based song on this album, if I'm gonna be honest. And I can see how in the middle of the album you see the play count kind of like dips a bit. Um, and oh, I just noticed OBS is frozen because it never recovered after okay, let's see if I can um see if I can fix this without it's still recording the audio. Wait, can you talk for a bit? Oh, it's not recording your audio. It's only been recording my audio. God damn it. Uh, hmm, okay, so I guess okay. Can you try talking now? Wow. Okay, so we're gonna have to stop recording and then stitch these two together in iMovie. Okay, so we are back and OBS is not working again. Jaden, can you talk for a bit to make sure we're still hearing you?
I am talking. Hello, I'm
Okay,
here.
so we can now hear Jaden again. So our apologies for not being able to hear a lot of Jaden's commentary for the past several tracks. That's my bad because I accidentally closed out the tab. I didn't notice that the settings got all fucked up when I closed out the tab though. Um, but yeah, we were on Rundown, which is far and away my favorite non-pain based song on the album just because of its sheer intensity and Paul Nunu's ability to convey his own abilities with terrorizing people through a song. Um, I just love the energy on this track. Then we have No Talkin', which is a pain-based song, and I think the least streamed song on the album on YouTube Music. Um, which I understand because the production on this track maybe leaves a little bit to be desired because of the background vocals are a little bit on the grating side with how they're produced. So I can understand why somebody might not come back to this track a lot. But I still do come back to it just because I love this album so much. Um, and yeah, I ain't talking on the phone. I don't really had a long day. Shooters ready to make the chrome spray. Like I love how he's just like intertwining these lyrics about being, in like, having a tough time with just like general gangster rap energy. Um, Really, really creative stuff. Then we have Heart So Cold, which is understandably one of the more played tracks on the back half of the album. Excellent chorus here. Um, then we have Froze Up. Da-da-da-da-da. Which actually, now that I kind of sing it out loud, it's almost slightly similar. No, it's not really similar to anything else, but it's just the way that I sung it. But yeah, Froze Up is another song that's kind of like uh Gang Ties in that it is melancholic in its energy, but not quite so much in its lyrical content. So it's a really good song to listen to if you're in like a melancholy or sad mood. But despite that, it still has a lot of just general gangster rap lyrics, and it's able to be good for moods like that, exclusively through the energy that it's able to bring. And Poloboy Nunu really is, as he demonstrates on this album, a master of bringing energy to a song, of bringing a certain energy to a song. Paw Paw Baby is a little bit of the same vibe. Go on. Okay. Now try talking again.
I'm talking again. I'm talking more. We are talking.
Okay. So sorry guys about this like slight mess of an episode. I don't know why OBS is like glitching out. I am now of the opinion that it was not my fault that the audio didn't get picked up earlier. I think OBS is just bugging out in general, and I think this might be one of those situations where it might continue to bug out until I restart my computer because I haven't restarted my computer in a while now. It's just been on for a long ass time. That's probably has something to do with it. Um, but yeah. Anyway, Paw Paw Baby. Say what you said. What you wanted to point out about the New Orleans Slammer line.
Oh, just that there wasn't really much I had to say about it. Just that uh, he had clearly spent some time in New Orleans, and New Orleans is where I've spent a lot of my life. So there's not really any commentary I have about it aside from.
And Paw Paw Baby is sort of also similar to the song Gay Times, in that um it has a melancholic mood to it, but typical gangster rap lyrics. And this album seems to have like four main sort of flavors of song: overtly pain-based songs, songs that have a melancholic energy to it, but that don't have quite pain-based lyrics, then hype songs, and then sort of like chill, bouncy songs. And Paw Baby is definitely one of the melancholic songs with typical gangster rap lyrics. Then we have Pain, which is probably in my top five favorite songs on the album. I love the hook on the song. Drugs, 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 drugs. Like it's like the how like he calls the song Pain, and then the chorus is just like him saying the word drugs over and over again, sort of like implying that the reason he's doing drugs is not necessarily always for fun or for utility, but to deal with pain in his life. And that's just really, really impressive. Great musicianship, as well as probably, in my opinion, the second bass pain bass song on the album. And again, one of the top five best songs on the album, period. Then we have, then we have, yeah, the song at least. And it's actually, I am extremely disappointed in my fellow Poloboy Nunu members that Pain only has 24,000 plays. Like, come on. It's an excellent song. I don't think it should only have 24,000 plays. It's like one of like the least listened to tracks on the album. As a matter of fact, there's only like one, two, three, four songs with less plays on it. It's the fifth least played track on the album, despite being in the top five best tracks on the album. Come on, Poloboy Nunu audience. Give Poloboy Nunu his credit on the Pain songs, okay? Like, yeah, I understand a lot of people like the hype tracks more than the Pain tracks, but Poloboy Nunu makes really, really good fucking Pain music. And it's showcased a lot on this album, but especially on the song Pain. Then we have, can you talk again? Yeah, it's not picking you up again. I don't know what the fuck's going on with OBS. Um,
Hello.
okay, so it's like for some reason, like after like a couple minutes or whatever, you stop being able to hear Jaden. So we're gonna get that fixed by next episode for sure. Hopefully it doesn't happen again, this episode. I'm not sure what's causing it, but
This is an episode I haven't had as much to say about, not because I don't enjoy the album, but just because it's like such a consistent feel for me and consistent energy for me a lot of the way. Maybe not consistent because there are different kinds of vibes to a lot of the songs, but it's just like a listen through all the way kind of album that I don't have a lot to say about the individual tracks as much.
yeah, I can
So
see that for
it's
sure.
couldn't have happened on a episode, I guess.
And it is consistent. Like there's variety in the track list, but like there can be both variety and consistency at the same time, right? Like there is variety in the track list, but there is also this sort of like overarching mood that sort of like hangs over all of the tracks, even despite their diversity. Um,
That is true.
Devil's Son is probably overall my favorite track on this album, as well as obviously my favorite pain-based track, mainly because of the chorus. I don't want to die anymore, live so many lives in a row. I relate to that so hardcore. Like I was just reflecting earlier today on how like I just had so many different chapters of my life and just felt so different in all of those different chapters. And like my reality itself, my perception of the world and of myself, and like to a certain extent, everybody can relate to different chapters in their life and having different realities in the different chapters. But for me, I just feel like something about having BPD as well as also the sheer chaos that my life has kind of been has made the sort of division between eras like especially pronounced for someone like me. And like I just really relate to I really relate to that chorus hardcore. Like I feel like I almost feel like I'm like the fucking doctor and I've just like regenerated like 14 times and I've just like had like a whole bunch of different lives. Just because of all the different places that I've been. It's like my life is like an epic that it's just been going on for far too long at this point, you know? It's like a Hobbit style epic, but it's like fucking 1700 pages at this point. Um,
No problem.
um, and then we have For My Bros, which is just kind of like an outro track, just like how Shaker Room is an intro track. For My Bros is just kind of like an outro track, almost kind of in the melancholic vibe but upbeat lyrics category of song on this album. So there's not quite as much to say about it, but it's another great song on an album that's full of great songs. I wonder how many parts this episode is gonna end up being broken up into. This episode is gonna be broken up into a lot of parts. I kept having to restart it because of the bugginess. Um, oh, at least I can see that it's all April 1st. Holy shit. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, like eight different fucking things I'm gonna have to stitch together. Oh well, I'm sure a couple of those probably we didn't actually say anything, so it's more like five or six. But yeah, I'm gonna have to just really stitch this episode together, and even then, we're still not gonna have all of Jaden's commentary because OBS is like freaking the hell out. But anyway, that is our episode for this week. It's a bit of a shorter episode. I imagine it probably came out to around 20, 30 minutes. But yeah, there's this album does have a very consistent vibe all the way through, and there are not many lyrics to go through, or not really any lyrics to go through because the lyrics haven't been transcribed. So I guess of course this episode was sort of fated to be rather short, but yeah, just one of my favorite gangster rap albums of all time. one of my favorite pain-based albums of all time. Just like Birth of Violence by Chelsea Wolfe, an excellent melancholic album to listen to. A lot of talent showcased on this album. Poloboy Nunu is extremely good at bringing different energies on different tracks and like conveying his emotions through not even just the lyrics but also the energy on these tracks. Excuse me. And even despite the fact this is a primarily melancholic album, there's also a few bangers sprinkled in here as well, such as Rundown, my personal favorite. Um, but yeah, those are all my that's a summary of my thoughts on this album. Jaden, if it's actually gonna pick up your audio, you can give your thoughts as well.
Just I heavily enjoyed this album. I'm really glad that you got me to listen to it. It's a little bit uh like different from what I normally listen to, and so I'm really glad to have the opportunity to like this and to really enjoy it as well, and to help expand my music taste. Um, One thing that I took note of that you kind of ended up touching on, so I didn't really say anything about it. It felt like there were elements of social commentary and discussions about just introspection on this album in the way that like an artist that I listen to more like or like my themes of that on the but it's like not quite as it's not like spelled out in the same way that it would be
Hmm.
on like a Kendrick Lamar album, but it just feels like there's still elements of that there, and so that was very interesting. Um, I think that I enjoyed this album a lot, and I will probably be returning to it quite a bit, at least some tracks on it, and I could see myself returning to the full album fairly regularly
I think
in certain contexts.
Poloboy Nunu conveys a lot of experiences on this album or presents a lot of experiences on the album with this sort of like um implicit understanding that like if you have even a modicum of awareness, you should like understand why some of the imagery that I'm putting forward is indicative of like systemic issues with the way that poor people and black people are treated in this country. I think that Paula Nunu, rather than like spelling out like Kendrick Lamar, like, see this is bad. He just sort of presents the situations and the imagery and the types of things that he's seen and done, and expects you to be intelligent and aware enough to come to the conclusion, to come to your own conclusions, and to come to accurate conclusions about sort of like the nature of the problems that Poloboy Nunu is facing. Just with lines like, my mama say they keep cutting the water off. That's like providing context to a lot of these other lyrics about crime, without explicitly stating, I have gotten into this lifestyle of crime because I grew up in poverty, right? Poloboy Nunu just like says shit and expects you to be smart enough to get it. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at there. Well, the audio cut out for Jaden again, but he just said yup very much so. We're gonna go ahead and go. We will see you guys next week for Jaden, what is the episode we're gonna be listening to next week? Ooh. So Jaden said that they're not 100% sure yet, but that they are leaning towards Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers for next week's episode. So we'll see if that's what it ends up being. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to this chaotic and fragmented ninth episode of the Music Nook. We should have these technical issues resolved by next week. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you guys on the fly.